house, a good energy. Welcome everybody to the August Wilson Cultural Center. I am Ronald Lee Newman, Managing Director. I am 1 week old today. I am very happy to be here in Pittsburgh, coming from Washington, D.C. I love y'all already, just to let you know. So I've already sent messages back that the vibe is good, the people are good, and I decided I'm going to stick around. So I have the great pleasure of introducing our Queen Mother here. And you didn't come to see me, so I'm going to make this really quick. She said, please. Yes, that's the welcome to Pittsburgh. An active member and iconic figure of the Black arts movement during the late 1960s, Nikki Giovanni continues to reign supreme as one of America's foremost poets. In 1968, she published her first book of poetry, Black Feeling, Black Talk. In 1970, she edited and published Night Comes Softly, an important anthology of poetry by Black women. Since that time, she has published over 40 books, as well as sound recordings. 3 of her books have been New York Times and Los Angeles Times bestsellers, and she has produced numerous books on poetry, memoirs, and books for children. Among her many accomplishments, Queen Mother Nikki Giovanni was awarded a National Endowment for the Arts Fellowship, was nominated for a National Book Award, has keys to more than 24 American cities, has received 7 NAACP Image Awards, received the first Rosa Parks Woman of Courage Award in 2002, was nominated for a Grammy in the Best Spoken Word category, was Woman of the Year in 3 different magazines, and is a distinguished professor at Virginia Tech University, where she has worked for almost 30 years. The August Wilson Center is honored to welcome Queen Mother Nikki Giovanni.
When I'm having readings, the kids don't know the spirituals. And when you're dealing with a son of a bitch like Donald Trump, there has to be, you have to know, how do we get over it? That would be another, I don't get to sing off, so I'm not going to sing how I got over it. But my soul does look back and wonder. We know that how our ancestors got over because they learned to lean on the everlasting arms. And right now, the kids don't know that. This is not Nikki preaching tonight. I just thought I would mention that, because if we don't find something that we can count on, that we can count on bringing us together, then we're going to let this fool separate us. And it's not right. We have to do better. You know, we have to do. I'm hoping for our sister in Florida. I'm glad she's making her have a recount, because we know they didn't know. We know they stole votes from her. And I'm proud of our brother, and I said sister, and I'm in Georgia. And I'm proud of our brother in Florida because they stole a vote from him. He won that election. Oh, yeah. He did. And I know that you and I know that no matter what they try to take from us, but what does they say, you know, you may have the world, but give me Jesus. But I know that we have to fight for some of these things. I know we all voted, because we all know there's a wonderful woman named Fannie Lou Hamer. And we know that Miss Hamer organized the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. And we know that she, in organizing that, rented a bus. You know how much money Miss Hamer must have had to rent a bus, to have people collect money in Ruralville, Mississippi, to go to Atlantic City, New Jersey, so that she could confront the president then of the United States, Lyndon Baines Johnson. And she testified that these were the people, her people from the bus were the people that said, we represent Mississippi, not John Stennis and all of them lying people. And Lyndon, of course, tried to do what he tried to do. He wanted to make it all right. So you know that what Lyndon did was finally he said to them, to Miss Hamer, why don't you take 2 seats? And on the next election, we'll work it out. And I love to quote Miss Hamer on that, because she said, I didn't come here for no 2 seats. She was right, she didn't, and she went back. But we know that she knew too, when they're gonna cross the line into Mississippi, you know they're gonna stop the bus, because we know the people that she's dealing with. And they took Miss Hamer off the bus. For those of us who know that history, it's sad, it's very sad. And they beat her till her feet were just shaking, they beat her. But Miss Hamer said she wanted to vote. And that's why, and I know we in this room did it, because nothing is going to stop us from voting. They can steal it, they can do what they want, but we're going to vote, because that's what we do. And as long as I'm alive, and maybe when I'm dead a few years, I'm going to vote for it. We're going to remember to vote for Fannie Lou. If nothing else, we're going to vote. If nothing else, we're going to write in a name. But if nothing else, we're not going to let that woman have taken that beating in vain. And of course, we're here in Pittsburgh, where we just had a horrible situation with the synagogue. And we've gotten to the point under the Trump administration where what we end up saying is only. There were only 11 people killed. And before we can get those 11 people buried, we have a situation right outside of Los Angeles, where we're now saying, well, it was only 13. I teach at a university, Virginia Tech, where it was 32, so we don't get the only. And if we remember what happened in Orlando, Florida with the gay community, it was 90-something people. They don't get the only. But those of us under 20, it was only, like that's normal. And there's nothing normal about it. And I just like Donald Trump, and nobody here would know or think anything different. But that son of a bitch had the nerve, he caused that. He caused that murder of those Jewish people here in Pittsburgh. And then he's going to come and we're going to mourn with him. He doesn't mourn with shit. There must be a better word, but I don't know it. And it just made it made me so angry. I applaud your mayor saying we don't want you to come. I applaud your mayor. And I just want to mention one other thing, because I said I wasn't preaching tonight, and I'm not. But it's just absolutely amazing to me that he gets to do what he's doing. And everybody wants to say to people like us, well, y'all got to learn to love people. I'm a Christian. You got to learn to love people. You know, Christ loved people. You know, you have to remember, that's why you read your Bible. And you don't let people interpret it for you. You have to remember that Jesus was out in the desert 40 days and 40 nights. He was hot, and he was thirsty, and he was hungry. You remember that. And you remember Satan came and said, let me give you some water, let me give you some food. And Jesus didn't try to love him. Jesus didn't come around and say, oh, brother, let me talk to you. Jesus said, and I quote, get thee behind me, Satan, because you got to learn who to hate. Jesus wasn't sitting on a cross and calling down to Mary and John, the beloved disciple, Say, you know, and Mom, by the way, tell Judas it's okay. I understand. You have to learn who to hate. Because you can only love the people who love you, and the rest of those sons of bitches should be hated. I get sick of all of that. You know, you got to love them all, because you ain't. And if you don't know who to love, then you don't know who to hate. So you be going home beating your wife, kicking your dog, doing crazy. You have to remember who to love and who not. And I just thought I'd mention that. And just want to mention one other thing about Jesus, because I like Jesus. I think he's a good guy. But we have to remember that Pontius Pilate, like Donald Trump, is a coward. He was a coward. He knew he had 3 crosses and 4 men. One of them was innocent, had nothing to do with it. And Pontius Pilate didn't want to take responsibility for saying, let's get him, because I want to get him because I don't like what he has to say. So he said to the crowd, what did you think? Well, the crowd was stupid. Every one of you in this room knows crowds are stupid. You don't ask crowds for nothing. That's why you have leadership. So the crowd said, give us Barabbas, because the crowd's crazy. So Pontius Pilate washed his hands. He said, oh, they want Barabbas. Now, we've seen crowds do that. We saw Donald Trump just fire a man that I used to dislike. He said, give us Barabbas. But what I liked, there was a visitor. And you remember the visitor is standing there trying to understand, what are these people doing? And when they said, Jesus will have to die, the cross is heavy. I see people wear a cross all the time. They have probably, some of you in the room had the cross on. And what you wear around your neck is not what he had to lift up. The cross was heavy. There was a man there, his name was Simon. He was a Cyrenian, he was black. You remember that? And Jesus had to lift the cross. He could see that the cross was heavy. He knew he couldn't go up on Calvary and die for him. He understood that. But he knew, Simon knew, that he could help carry the cross. And he helped him lift that cross up. And if there's one thing I would like to know, is what Jesus and Simon talked about on the way up. Because Jesus was a talker. You know he had a story, not as bad as I am. You know he had a story to tell. But we know that the cross was heavy, and we know that Simon did his fair share. And the joy, in all fairness to everybody, of being black, is that you and I have helped carry that cross. We have lifted it up, and we have done our fair share. And that's a good thing. No, it's a good thing, because it's not easy being black. It's not easy lifting up that cross. And even to this day, we don't like Cyrenians, do we? We're still jealous because they did their job. While others were trying to kill Jesus, he lifted that cross. What has excited me, what has interested me, is why Jesus was in the middle. I don't know if you thought about it, me probably. Why he was in the middle. Because if you look at the cross, okay, you got a guy, you got Jesus, and you got another guy. Now, Jesus was a nice guy. And I'm not preaching today, I just want to mention this. And so when they're going to nail you to the cross, that has to be uncomfortable. They're going to nail you to the cross. And as they set the cross up, Jesus is going to look over, because he knows that all 3 of them are going to do the same thing, but he knows he's God, and they not. And he looks over to the man on the right. You remember that. And he tried to comfort him, but the man on the right was a fool. And he said to Jesus, you know, you say you God, but you up here like the rest of us. And this is why I like Jesus, because he didn't spend his time talking to fools. He didn't. He knew who he liked and who he didn't. That's a fool. So he looked over. He looked over to his left. And the man on the left said, I believe that you are God. And Jesus said to him, you will be with me in heaven today. You know that. So we know, we who are Christians, that whatever it is that we do not listen to the fools on the right. Pittsburgh with you because we are continuing. The world is changing and the world is going to continue to change. I'm here with a lot of you, but I'm here mostly, if I may, just for, it's not personal like that, but I'm here with my sorors. The reason I'm going to mention them, aside from the fact that I love them, we recently, as you know, lost our soror, Aretha Franklin. But our soror, Lillian Bimbo, purchased it. It's been about 50 years now. I was trying to think of when. It's been about 50 years. She purchased a satellite. And when she went to purchase a satellite, people would say, you know, the sorority said, we're not going to waste our money on a satellite. And she's president of Delta Sigma Theta. Yes, we are. And we bought a satellite when you could buy a satellite. And I'm mentioning this because the kids are coming up using, what is that thing, an iPhone? That thing that everybody has, that three-dimensional thing. That now we have a whole group of young black kids coming up with a way to use what our soror, Lillian Bimbo, looked at some 50 years ago. And you and I'm an old woman, I'm 75. I recommend old age. But as you are thinking about what we're doing, we have to be thinking ahead. Because we're living in a world that keeps telling children, you got to get a good job. Well, there's no such thing as a good job. It's only a job. That's the truth. Think about it. I have a job. I was very pleased when I finally took a job, because I'm an airline, you know, I go around and I took a job. And the first thing that surprised me about the job was that you get a check every 2 weeks. I was amazed, you know, and you go to your mailbox and there's a check. You say, oh God, what is this? And you look again, and then you have something called health care. And it was like, oh, shit, you know, I can get sick, I got health care. Because as a poet, you don't have these things. You don't have a job and you don't have health care. And I wish all of your children well. I wish your grandchildren well. I'm happy for them. But we know the last person that was interested in a job, his name was Judas. And they offered him 30 pieces of silver. We're going to take care of you, Judas, if you'll just kiss the one they called Jesus. And he did. And we know that what Judas had to end up doing was hanging himself. We got a fool in the White House just saying around, I'm a billionaire. He's crazy as a fucking loon. And it's only money. And we have to remember, it's only money. They make it. There's a machine that makes it. And now they don't even do that, because now everybody got a credit card. I like credit cards, because eventually if you can't pay them, they come and they're hollering at you and shit, but you can't pay them anyway. You can't. So you just sell them like they say about everything else. We got a man on the Supreme Court, raped a woman. I'm sorry. Didn't he? Kavanaugh? Yeah. So when you can't pay your bills, you can't pay your taxes, you're hell, I'm sorry. Go on about your business. But you can't give up your soul for money, because it's just money. And as your grandchildren grow up, one of the things they're going to have to change is the way we are doing business. It's insane that kids go to school at 8 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. And we can do fall back and we can fall as far back as we want. They still have to leave in the dark. Mm-hmm. And they get out at 3 o'clock in the morning, and those of us who are teachers know why. It's because we wanted the black kids to work. The black kids had to get up in the dark, and they had to go out and they had to take their water and things out into the field. Water boy, where are you hiding, right? And they only got to go to school 4 months out of the year, because we wanted them to pick cotton. Mm-hmm. We know these things. They had a job. They had a job, but what did it do? It tried to beat them down. And you know what's fun about being black? Is that somehow a group of people who couldn't read or write, who were prevented from reading or writing, found a way to tell our story. And we told our story through song. Now we opened this meeting here with leaning on the everlasting arms. And if you look at some of the hymns and stuff, you'll see they always have some white person's name on it. And you know they stole those songs from us. You know that. I mean, That's true. That's the truth. The one white woman that I have the most respect for in the world is a woman named Bonnie Raitt. Because she recognized, some of you know, she recognized we stole those blues from those black women. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see to it as best I can that they get some of it back. Bonnie's the last one. The rest of them just steal it. Or, if you're opening up some hymnals, it says traditional. Who's damn tradition? You have to wake up in the morning if you're black and say, I'm wonderful, because we are great people. And I'm glad to be here with you today, and thank you for coming, because I think the Steelers are playing. So I know you're making a sacrifice. Everybody got their phone on and say, no, I ain't I'm going to watch the game. I appreciate that we are coming together because we need a fellowship. We will continue to need a fellowship. And we come from a people who found a fellowship, who recognize, and my favorite person on earth, really my favorite mammal, I should say, on earth, is Father Penguin. And I think that if it's one thing we should teach black men, and not the black women, but that black men should know, Father Penguin is the best father on earth. Because Father Penguin, Mother Penguin lays the egg, and she has given all that she can give. We know that. She has to go back to the ocean. If she doesn't go back to the ocean, she's going to die. So she has to go back. She lays that egg, and she has to go. And Father Penguin picks up the egg. He's got a pouch. And he puts the egg in the pouch. And he and his brothers come together, and they move. And they keep moving, because if they don't move all winter, they'll freeze to death. Father Penguin doesn't say, amen. Father Penguin doesn't have that. He says, the egg needs to be nourished. And if I can move, I'm going to do it. And they go around in the circle. Some of Father Penguin's eggs are going to die. They don't ask that question. They don't say, is it a good? They don't do that. They just say, my job is to love and take care of this egg. And that's something black men have to be really, really aware of, because everybody wants you to say, amen. I don't know who you think it is, but whatever it is, I'm telling you the truth. Whatever it is, you need to love it. You need to get in that circle with other black men. And you need to stay warm, and you need to teach them this is how we function together. But of course, I came here this evening to read. I'm shorter than the podium. That's why I'm standing over here. Is that okay? Because probably didn't eat enough. But my grandbaby came down to visit me. It was so nice. For those of us who are grandparents, you know, really the best thing about your children is your grandchildren. I'm teaching her a couple of things. I'm a good cook. But it's not just that I want to teach her how to fry chicken, because I fry the best chicken. I do. But my bucket list, you know, everybody's got a bucket list, something. But my bucket list is beat Bobby Flay. And I want to get on the show. Next time I have a book coming out, that's what I'm asking my publicist to do. I want to get on the show, because Bobby Flay, you know, is like, I can beat everybody. I'm going to say, you know, now we're going to fry some chicken. Because I know that he can't, there's not a white man on earth. I don't eat Kentucky Fried Chicken. I hope none of you do. Because, no, it just makes you mad to see a white man in a white suit talk about fried chicken. That's not something he even knew anything about. We ended up getting the pieces of chicken that nobody wanted. You get the neck and you get the back, and you learn to fry, because they wanted the breast and sometimes the drumstick. But what tickles me about white people, and I'm not in a bad mood today, now they always think they want the best. And so we're doing the greens, because we're picking the greens. And the wife was like, I want the greens, because they want them on the table. But the best part of the greens, as we all know, we who are black, is the pot liquor. And so we had the pot liquor, and we grew strong. And what I wanted for my granddaughter is, because I'm a big fan of chitlins. And everybody's, ooh, I wouldn't eat chitlins. You know, the only thing about chitlins that you have to do, which is what I was teaching her, you turn them inside out and you clean them. You have to clean them. But you have to clean any damn thing you're going to put in your mouth. That would be another discussion. But I like chitlins, by the way, and I do, because you get to cook them, and I think about my grandmother, but mostly, and I didn't know her that well. I know my grandmother because I lived with grandmother, but the one we called Mama Dear, who in our family was the first child, the free child of slave parents. And so if you were Mama Dear and you got the chitlins, because again, the white folks wanted, you know, they wanted the ham and they wanted stuff. We got the pig feet, which I think are fabulous. We got the pig ears, and we did. And we got the chitlins because they didn't know what to do with them. And you turn them inside out, you cut them, and you cook them on low. You know, you put your spices in, you get your nice, you know, and you can cook them all day because they got you out in the fields. And so when you come in, you don't have anything, you know, if you're not doing something like that, you can't eat. So the chitlins then are done, and you sit there and eat. And then you did what we were just doing. You sing a song to each other because you have a little time left over. White folks never understood how we could find time to sing, not to mention on the weekends how we could find time to dance. And they said, oh, y'all just always singing and dancing. It kept us sane. If you hadn't learned how to sing and dance, your ass wouldn't be in the trouble you're in right now. That's the truth, but that's another discussion. I wanted to read because I love her so much. I'm a jazz fan. I'm a jazz fan, but I want to read some blues because when I was let me find it. There we go. When I was a teenager, I used to wear. Now I don't wear dresses very much because, you know, first of all, you end up with things. You know, your knees are all scratched up and you've had operation. I mean, you know, you just don't look good anymore. Kids all wear. Did you see that girl at Aretha's funeral? Where was her mama? I couldn't believe that somebody walked out on stage at a funeral and her dress is up to here. And then the preacher gonna be a fool and gonna grab her ass and it's like, have you heard this is a funeral? That was so embarrassing. But I am a blues singer. I mentioned Bonnie Raitt, but I am a blues. I love the blues, and it's something. Now I listen to a lot more jazz because you can hear, for those of you who are into music, you can hear how jazz built on the spirituals. Other things, but it's right up there. And there's a book, because it only made sense to me. I daydream a lot. I'm a poet. And it only made sense to me that there was something going on with the formation of the universe that we don't know, that we didn't know. And there came up with, there's a book out now, and it's called Jazz, the Jazz of the Universe. And what he's saying, what Dr. Anderson is saying, is that the universe was formed by sound. I think that's fabulous, and that's what I'm enjoying. I don't know much about physics, jazz and physics, but it makes sense that sound would create something, and that something would bring something, and that this is how we go forward. But if jazz was going to do that, then it had to have started with the blues. There had to be something in the universe that was making a moan. So when I think about our people, how we got from Africa to America, well, of course, clearly, the Africans sold us and the Europeans bought us. We don't have any problem with that. And Africans were wrong and they owe us an apology. And when they make an apology, they'll be sane, because right now they're still having problems. We came here. Now we know that the wars have gone on forever. There's a war going on right now. And we know that we who were captured and sold knew that there's a war. So it was like only. We only captured. But we knew that the first and second day, they had us in the ship. You've seen it. And so if you're lined up, then everything that's coming out of you is coming on him or her, coming on him or her, coming on. So you got to get that off, because if you're going to have slaves, they're not going to make it to America. Now, they know we're going to what is going to be called America. We don't know that, but we know it has to be cleaned up. So the second day, they bring you up, you know, in groups, and pour water on you, throw water on you and everything. Take their whips and whip at you, so you jump up and down so your muscles will stay, right? Put you back down. So you're saying, okay, there's a war going on and my people are going to come get me. So the 4th and 5th day, they're doing the same thing, blowing it, trying to get you cleaned up, trying to get you jumped up. When we get, and this is what I wanted to mention, to the 10th day, for those of us who are history, when we get to the 10th day, the people are looking around and they can't see anything that makes sense. They can't see the clouds, they can't see the land, they can't see anything. So they know that whatever this is different. And this is going to be on that 10th day, the day that we're going to have the rebellion. So every white man and woman, and we keep wanting to not admit that white women were on that ship, because when they were having a ship without the women, the men were killing each other and screwing each other and doing things that was unattractive. So they finally brought some women and put them on the ship. So the white men and white women are now going to be armed. These are things we know. If I've said it badly, I apologize. And they're going to bring us up, but we're going to recognize we are lost. And so we are going to rebel against where we are. So we're going to be shot. We're going to be pushed overboard. Some of us are going to be captured and hanged, and we're going to be pushed back down. And this is what is important, because this is where the universe comes in. I always think of it as a woman because women do that. I'm not saying men don't, I'm just saying women do. And as we're down now, recognizing that whatever it is something we don't know, I want to say two things. The people who sold us think that we are gone. And we are, but we are not dead. We are in transition. I think death is a bad word. And though we never went back, we were still alive. Am I making sense? And the people down below, as they're down below, it's going to be a woman. And she's going to recognize that her people are in pain and need comfort. But there's no such language as African. Every community has its own language. Like there's no such language as European. They all have their language, German, this stuff, French, Portuguese, Spanish. Everybody has their language. There's no such thing as African language. We all had our language. So how is she going to comfort her people? How is she going to make them know it's going to be all right? It is well with my soul. How's she going to get that conveyed? She's going to have to hum. And she's going to, and they're going to bring that hum into the United States. And of course, there is no language, really. We don't speak English, as we all know. If you ever go to London, when you've been in London, you know damn well, you talk to them, you don't know what they're talking about. They don't half know what you're talking about. We speak American. And we speak the language that we speak because we had to learn what they were saying to us, and they had to learn what to say to us. If you want your slave to work, you have to say something to them, and they have to understand you. So we made them learn a language and create a language. So every time people talk about this language, this is our language. We're the ones that created this language so that we could talk to them and they to us. Make sense? And the thing that's going to hold on to all of it is going to be the music. So I'm a jazz. I'm a blues. We're going to do blues. I had a boyfriend. He was a nice guy. His name was Nate Gray. And Nate used to, in my day now, I'm an old woman. I don't think I'm the oldest woman if I'm coming close. But Nate used to do a thing called run policy. Now some of you are too young to know policy. It's the numbers. And if you ever wonder why black people get mad, for those of us who are white in this room, if you ever wonder why black people get mad at white people, it's because when we were running the numbers, it was illegal. You would get arrested for running the numbers. You can't do that, you know, illegal. Put you in jail for running numbers. They called it policy to try to make it better, but it was running numbers. Once they got everybody they could in jail, then all of a sudden it's called the state lottery. It makes you mad, you know, they ought to be ashamed of themselves. They ought to be ashamed. But that song is going to keep coming through. And what you like about black people is that we're sarcastic. No, if you listen to if you listen to the spirituals, there's not one spiritual in there that says we ought to kill them. Not one. Not one. Because that's not the way we think. But there are spirituals in there that say, everybody talking about heaven ain't going there. And the white folks will listen and say, oh, ain't that sweet they're talking about us. I had a boyfriend named Nate. Nate used to run the numbers. Okay, I was about 15 years old. So you can imagine at 15 years old, you think you're cool. And I lived in Cincinnati, Ohio, with my parents, and across the river, Cincinnati's on this side of the Ohio. On the other side is Newport, Kentucky, Covington, Kentucky. They had what we would call the dirty money. So all of the blues clubs were in Kentucky, and the nightclubs, you know, the ones that everybody got dressed up for, were here. But Nate knew that I liked the blues, and Big Maybelle was coming. So Nate came to my mother and said to her, you know, I got a surprise for Nikki. I got a treat. I wonder if it'd be okay with you if I took Nikki to a nightclub. And to this day, I don't know why Mommy said yes. Because she always trusted Nate, though Nate was not trustworthy. But Mommy said, yeah, you know, she can go. We picked her up. And so Nate picked me up, and we went to Newport. And I thought I was really cool. I had on my, because you wear your dress then, I wore high heels then. And so, you know, you walk into a club with one of the big gamblers, and so you cool, you know. And sat down, and I ordered a drink, and I didn't start to drink. My father was an alcoholic, and that'll keep you from drinking, believe me. And I didn't start to drink till I went to Virginia Tech. But I ordered, and some of you know, it's called gin fizz. And I laughed because gin fizz didn't really drink. It's half step off of, you know, ginger ale. So I wrote a poem for Big Maybelle. The room was dark, dank actually. It was, after all, Newport, Kentucky, preserver of sin and soul. My boyfriend, whom my parents trusted, though Nate did not deserve their trust, was taking me to a nightclub. George Ratterman would be serviced one day and close Covington and Newport down, and Cincinnati would suffer. The living room, Mark Murphy, Les McCann, the mighty Amanda Ambrose, fresh from Chicago. Newport had the blues and gambling, though the biggest gamble was probably with your life. I wore high heels then and dresses just a bit above my knees. I drank gin fizzes because, let's admit it, that's not a drink. Nate said, I have a treat, so Mommy let me go to a bar that was dark, down dank steps, where I coolly walked in with one of the gamblers who everybody knew. We could see through to the back before the performers came to the mic. The stage jingled, and candy was belted out. I called my sugar candy, and there she was. 2 tons of incredible womanhood, balanced on stiletto heels, wrapped in a black silk dress, talking about her candy. And I, who was born in Knoxville, Tennessee, met one of Tennessee's greatest gifts to the world, the girl from Chattanooga. Shake it, baby, shake it. That woman would never sell Girl Scout cookies or be seen collecting for diabetes. She would never make calls for crippled children somewhere in Africa, nor head up the blood drive in her hometown, no. She'd be leaning over the back fence in a man's pair of house slippers with a cigarette just sort of dangling between her lips, laughing, laughing, laughing. Yes, ma'am, this was Big Maybelle. And I stamped and clapped and shouted, shake it, Sister Maybelle, shake it. Go on, girl, shake that thing. Speaking of my father, he had issues, and the older I get, the more I'm trying to, you know, understand him, because everybody tries to understand everybody. But he got sick. Gus and I didn't, I called him Gus, my sister called him. Gus he had a stroke. And I was living in New York then, and I had finally graduated from college, got kicked out, and then I went back. And everybody gets kicked out. There's a reason pencils have erasers, you know. No, I'm a big fan of all of it. I'm a big fan of divorces. If you're not getting along, get a divorce. If you don't get a divorce, somebody gets killed. That's not good. I'm a big fan of abortion, because none of my business. And everybody's like, you know, I don't believe in abortion, but then don't get pregnant. Because the people that don't believe in abortion are mostly men, and they don't get pregnant. The rest of us do, but that's another discussion. But it's not, that's true, and I'm not trying to, it's none of my business. That's what I'm trying to say. It's your life, and it's your business. But one of the things that happened was, I'm living in New York, and I really just didn't like my father. Well, if you ask me what was I doing on Saturday at 11 o'clock, I was listening to him hit my mother, which didn't make a lot of sense. So you have all that, and you have to work all of that through. If you let it stay with you, it'll make you crazy. So, you know, you have to, I cannot be made crazy. One day I will understand it. So you go on. But my phone rang one night, and it was Mommy. And she said, Nikki, I want you to know your father's in the hospital. Well, I know she didn't call to tell me he was in the hospital because I couldn't care less. She called because obviously she needed something. I have an older sister. I'm the baby. Well, I was the baby in the family. My cousin just died, Terry. And so now I'm the oldest person in the family. And there's only 8 of us now. And we had to laugh because we're crazy. And we said, well, the next time we'll all be together, there'll only be 7 of us. One of us will be not here, as it were. But I knew that Mommy didn't call me because she didn't have anything else to do. So it was clear that that's why daughters are important. I'm a big fan of daughters. I have a son and I like him. He's a good guy. But there are just times that you need a daughter. And she didn't have to tell me that. I had a little Volkswagen. The next morning I woke up, packed the Volkswagen, put my son and my dog in, and drove to Cincinnati. And so Gus, and we knew he was going to die because he had a stroke and he wasn't well. But it was clear that he wasn't going to die soon. Okay? So he's going to get out of the hospital and he's going to come home. So we're going to have, I guess you would call it disputes. I'm sitting there in the morning having coffee, and he's got something to say that I don't want to hear, and I say something I don't want to hear. And I realized the problem here is that I am now living in his house. And so this has to change. So I went and found a house, and I bought my mother a house that we moving. And so my father's like, I don't want to move. I didn't give a damn what you want. Nor do I care where you are. Mommy and Thomas and Duke and I are moving. Give a damn what happens to you. So it was like, okay, I'll move. Like, you're not doing me a favor, but he moved. So we sold the old house. I worked. So we're still having issues in the morning. And one morning we had a situation, and I said something, and he said something, I said something. And he got to, you know how people do, because he's got a stroke, so he had, and he gets ready to get up, and I said, Gus, as calmly as I knew how, the chair you're getting up from is my chair. And so he's looking at the floor it's sitting on is my floor. The bedroom you're getting ready to walk into because you're mad is my bedroom. And the bed you're going to stretch out in is my mattress and box springs. Now let me tell you how the rest of your life is going to go. So this is the you're going to tell that woman who has put up with you all of these years that you love her. In the morning, when she gets up and fixes breakfast, you're going to smile and tell her how good the breakfast is. You're going to tell her that she looks good. And I'm going to hear that, because if I don't, I'm going to put your ass in a place that you will be so sorry, because it's called Longview for those of you who know. And he looked at me, and I said, you know, it doesn't bother me that I'm going to hell, because I'm kin to you, so we'll talk this over. I know I'm going to hell, it's just that wouldn't bother me. But you know what he did the next morning? He woke up and said, honey, how you doing? Did you sleep well? Because he understood that I definitely would have wrapped his ass up and put his son. But he died, of course, because he was going to die. And when he did, Mommy was sorry. And so when he did, we buried him, as you have to do. And, you know, I was sad for her, I guess. But Mommy and I now said, Mommy's a beer drinker. I'm not a beer drinker. I cook with beer, I don't drink it. And so we were sitting at the table one day, and we were drinking, and I said to her, I said, Mommy, and this is a long introduction to the book, but that's why. I said, Mommy, you know, you should have married me. Because I love my mother, but she should. I said, you should have married me. It would have been a different situation. And Mommy's one of those people, you know, she's sweet. She, oh, honey, if I had married you, how would I get you? And I said, well, you know, human beings are learning more every day. And one day we're going to learn how to lay a human egg. And we'll be able to look at it, and we'll be able to tell what's rotten and needs to be just cracked open and thrown away, and what we're going to keep. So it would have prevented Hitler, it would have prevented Donald Trump, it would have prevented Christ. These are bad eggs, and we could have kept the rest of them. So we laughed, but I wrote a poem. I wrote this poem, I wanted to share it with you. It says, I married my mother because essentially I lived with her for 30 years. And actually, Mommy and I got along for a couple of reasons. One, I loved her, I think she loved me. But mostly what Mommy did that was incredibly important to me was she had no opinion about me. She didn't have any opinion about my life. She had no opinion about what I did, no opinion about my money. I hate opinions. I don't know if any of you do. I just hate people that, now let me tell you, no, damn it, if I want to know, I'll ask. I hate opinions. And I don't give opinions. So a lot of times people that are close to me think, well, you didn't care, you didn't ask. No, I don't ask. Because if you want me to know, I'm sitting here, you tell me. That I just hate that, because otherwise you're meddling. Right. I married my mother. Excuse me, I know crying is a skill. I automatically wipe my eyes, even though I know crying is a skill. Maybe I will learn. My mother did when she thought I was asleep. I think my sister did, sleep. But sleep is as difficult to me as crying. I laugh easily and I smile and withhold any true feelings, except once I fell in love with my 8th grade teacher and spent most of my life trying to feel safe again. Though maybe I'm safe now, after almost 30 years, which is as long as I lived with my mother. Maybe that's not a poem. Maybe that's something else. Maybe I just wanted to show my father that he needn't be cruel. Maybe I just enjoyed buying the house he had to live in, showing her she should have married me instead of him. Or maybe, since we will all soon be gone, I should be happy I found my mother and someone else who loves me. What else really matters? I'm going to read. This is another thing. We were talking about transitions. I just want to share this one because I think death is probably a bad word. And I was having lunch. I had a student. I have a student. And, well, she's graduated now. And she has a 12-year-old daughter. And her daughter thinks that she's ugly. There must be other ways to, but her daughter. And so she called me and she said, you know, I think it'd be so good for my daughter, and I'm not going to call her name, but if she would get to meet you. She didn't say because you're crazy, but you know, that's what it amounted to. And I said, I'd love to. So we went to the Chinese restaurant where we're eating. And, you know, you just sit there, because I said, I don't ask questions, because if you want to tell me something, you'll tell me, and asking questions you don't get any further anyway. And so the kid finally said to me, you know what, she calls me Miss Nikki, which I dislike, because I just think of myself as Nikki. You know what, Miss Nikki? And I said, what's that? She said, I'm just a weed. And I looked at her, because, you know, we've just been sitting there long, and I guess she's had to say, eating this food. And I said to her, I don't know, and I don't know what that means. She said, I'm just a weed. I said, what's a weed? She said, you know, it's something that doesn't, you just throw it away. I said, no, baby, a weed is something we haven't found a use for. And that's the truth. Think about it for me. We like a rose because we find it beautiful. It's just a weed to somebody else. We like greens because we want to eat them. We like collards. It's just a weed to somebody else. There's no such thing as a weed. There's only something that we haven't finally found some sort of use for. And I was saying, I don't think you should think that you have to be, that some use has to be made of you. But I know there's no such thing as a weed. And one of the things that I truly hate, that I don't mind sharing, I truly hate Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. I do. I have ruined it for all. I've been teaching for 32 years. I have ruined it for every class. I have. Because there's nothing worse than Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and they laugh at how he looks. So the question is, why did they dislike Rudolph? Because he looked funny, or I have a critic who does children's literature critic. She says it's because he was gay. I don't know what it is, but I know that they bullied Rudolph, right? They wouldn't play with him. You had to know Santa Claus was sitting around. He had to see that Rudolph was out there lonely. Mrs. Claus had to see that. They didn't have anything to do with Rudolph until one foggy Christmas Eve. Right? Then all of a sudden, Santa's down there. Hey, Rudolph, you know, you want to lead the sled? If I had been Rudolph, I would have said, kiss my red nose. I would have. Now you show up. That's America. When they wanted somebody to beat up the German, Max Schmeling, what did they do? They called Joe Louis. That's Rudolph. They called up Joe Louis. They said, would you go and beat Max? So he goes and he beats Max, and he comes back, he can't even use the same toilet. When they want somebody to win a gold for them at the Olympics, that's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. They're called Jesse Owens. They say, will you run track? And Jesse goes and he wins. He wins a gold for him. It's like, okay, but we can't have you walking through the front door. I love Tommy Smith, and when they went, at the Old Olympics, they made a statement, and I love Colin, because Colin took a knee. They might be mad at Colin. I think it's the best thing in the world. You get tired of being Rudolph all your damn life. I know, and I wanted to share this. I have, you see they're small, but they're lovely. My mother, it's my 40th birthday gift from my mother. And Mommy's one of those people like her mother, and I live with both of them, who could save. She could save a penny a day, you know. And she gave me this because she knows I like diamonds. Well, it's a small diamond. I have friends that have real big diamonds. I don't. I use these little diamonds. And in thinking about that, when Mommy gave them to me, one, it was a lot of love that Mommy gave these to me. And I love that. But in thinking about what am I wearing, and I only wear them, you know, especially I don't wear them every day, but having them on, and I thought, there's no such thing. Diamonds don't just boom, it's a diamond. This is a transition that someone has made. Someone was buried, and I don't know how many years, how many thousands of years. I know that the diamonds come from rocks. And I know that if you are digging rocks, right here in Pittsburgh, you're in mountains, some of you could dig someplace and you'd run across a rock, and something would say, I'm gonna take it home. And you'd rinse the mud off of it. And you wouldn't know why you're taking it home. You wouldn't know what it meant to you, but all of a sudden that rock is meaningful. And you're speaking of grandchildren, your granddaughter would come and say, Grandma, I like that rock. And you'd say, well, this is for you, baby. And you would pass it on to her, and it would be the love. You could polish it up, or you could leave it as it is. But we know, and some rocks you would see and you would pass them up. You see what I'm saying? Because some things don't matter. But some things do. And we have to ask ourselves, why does it matter? I had a good friend, president of Fisk University, who passed. And his wife, Betty, called me because I love Walter so much. And she said, at that point, he was passing. And she said, Walter is passing, and you know, I'm trying to make arrangements for the funeral, because it was very sad for Betty. I mean, she loved him. We all loved him. And I was trying to think of what to say, because you can't. I hate people that do that too. Your mother dies, your husband dies, your child dies, your dog dies, and somebody says, oh, you'll get over it. If you're not gonna fucking get over it. What you're gonna get over is them. You need to go find another friend. Because that's not gonna be it. You need somebody to say, you know, I'm just gonna sit here with you, I'm sorry. You don't need anybody to tell you it'll be all right. How's it gonna be all right? You're not gonna grow another mother. So, you know, they need to get over those things. I wrote this poem it's for Walter, but I really wrote it for Betty. Because as he got to a point of transition, he wasn't quite past, but he was passing, she could no longer take care of him. And so, and I think that's going to be true of anybody. That's true of any of us. It's true of me, anybody else. You get to the point, unless I think I'm going to drop dead on stage. But I probably dropped dead and just haven't caught up with it. But I wanted to write something to say that Walter too, and we don't know when, somebody will come and find that. And they won't know why they love it, whatever little thing it is, and they will take it. And it will be the love that she has for Walter and that we have, and that he is now giving back to whomever 200 years, 300 years, 1,000 years from now found it. It's called heritage. The folk here are old. There are wheelchairs and people struggling to push them. There are sad-eyed people looking up from beds they cannot stretch out in. And some simply cannot move their heads. All will become something precious. Sapphires, emeralds, rubies, which will be discovered by other explorers who will polish and shape the stones. And we will wear them, never knowing whose loved one we have embraced. One of my favorite poems, because I think I wrote a book called Love Poems, and I'm always in love, because poets are always in love. And this was one of the poems I wanted. It's a celebration, because I just think that black men get and I've been talking about you too, but I think that we're not fair to black men. And I think that one of the great things that was done relatively recently was the celebration of the Million Man March. And I know, and I have to say I know, I'm just speaking as an old woman, I know that if O.J. Simpson, who's crazy as a loon, had the sense when he was found not guilty, and I don't believe he killed that girl, I don't think anything in the world made him do, he should have gotten on a plane and come to the Million Man March and thanked his brothers for the prayers and the hope that they had given him. It would have been, instead that fool was running around, I want my statue back, I want and so he's back in jail. I think he's out now, isn't he? Yeah, but he went to jail for a long time. You think you damn fool? Go and thank the people who love you. I wrote a poem, and it's called, and yeah, this is a love poem. It's not that I don't respect the brother in Baltimore or Washington or even some parts of Northern Virginia, because I do. It's just that this is different. The brother who had to wake up before dawn, get into a car that may or may not need a new muffler, a new set of spark plugs, some attention to the motor, but who decided nonetheless, yes, he had to heed the call to go to Washington, D.C. That's the brother I want to talk about. Not at all, please understand, that I don't have a high regard for the brother who got on the bus. Getting on buses has always been a central revolutionary act of Black America, just as Plessy or Parks know. Getting on a bus is an act of responsibility, an act of bravery, and commitment to change. But the brother who rose from his warm bed, who made his own coffee because his wife pretended to be asleep, because she was scared he might not come back alive, and she didn't want to let him see the fear in her eyes because she knew he needed to go, even if he wouldn't come back alive. That's the brother I want to talk about here. I want to talk about the young brother who just doesn't understand why everything he does, no matter how hard he tries, just never seems to come out right. How if he goes bowling and gets 9 pins, that 10th man would just stand there mocking the ball, headed for the cutter. How if he bumps into someone on the street and says a simple "I'm sorry," someone else jumps in his face. But if he doesn't say anything, then someone says he is uncouth. Or how sometimes people deliberately run into him, so he joined with other people like him. And instead of calling it a benevolent society or a brotherhood or something wonderful and romantic like Elks or Masons or Lions or Rotarians, they call it a gang, indicating it is a nest of vipers, and terms like that, indicating things that we find dirty and unacceptable. How when 4 or 5 white boys rape a mentally handicapped girl, they are just exercising bad judgment. But when 4 or 5 black boys rape a jogger, they are all animals. And this is not for any brother who rapes any female. They were all found innocent. And it's not for anybody who hurts women in any other vulnerable form. But just a word or two about black boys who don't understand why everything they ever try to do just never seems to turn out right. And I think, yes, of course. Why wouldn't they cry themselves to sleep when all they want and ever want to be, they already know, is denied them? Why wouldn't they be afraid of the dark? Why wouldn't their hearts be broken when the people they love, mothers, fathers, aunts, uncles, girlfriends, good buddies, teachers, preachers, all turn out to be untrue? And please don't tell me that basketball and baseball and football aren't the way to go, that they should get their education, when their education will only teach them to get a talent, because the people who get up, if not out of these cesspools we call the inner city, have something more than a high school education behind them. And you have to be some kind of a real fool not to see that they see who makes the money and who doesn't. This is for the brother, however, who does indeed believe that there should be, can be, and must be a change. It's not that I am in any way unhappy about the brother who has a fine home, a car that is always serviced on time, a job with health benefits, a pretty wife, happy, smart children, a dog, well raised. I'm proud and happy for him, because a person cannot do better unless people cannot do better unless individuals do better. But this is about the brother who stands on street corners singing 5-part a cappella harmony, and the brother who does break dancing under street lights. And they took away music classes, so the brothers scratched. Then they invented CDs, so the brothers rapped. Then they said rap is the enemy of women, as if Yale University wasn't turning out right-wing predators who drink too much beer and don't remember who they did and what they did to them. So this is for the brother who's simply trying to find a tone to soothe his soul, while everybody wants to make him the reason America is off track. And this is about the brother who, knowing he is a better person than even he thinks he is, got in his car in Detroit or Cincinnati or St. Louis and headed for Washington, not knowing if he would be the only brother to show up for the Day of Atonement, but knowing if he was the only brother, then on this day, at this time, he would be the brother to stand and say to himself, his brothers, and all the folks who he loves and who love him, I am sorry things are not different. And this is a mighty powerful thing to say, because people want to make you make miracles, when all any of us can do is say, I wish it would be different. But this is for the brother who was willing to be the only brother. So if there would be laughter as he stood alone on the mall, he still said, I will stand today because it doesn't matter if I am alone. I need to stand and testify. And yeah, this is a love poem for that brother who decided this one day, this one point in time, I will be my better self. And we are all so proud of you.